Hello, everyone. What an insane day on the market. Uh, I think I think that this is it. I'm battling between we have one more retrace, but at the same time, I think that this is it. This is the last run with all-time high being the target before, the inevitable. And I think that this top is here and this little guy is here because the bottom structure, you know, I'd say like this is very similar to at least how I see it, you know, right here. And the volume candle that we got at the end of the day was basically the same size as the inflation report. Uh, I guess total daily volume. Not exactly, just a little bit less, but I mean, look at the volume here, right? Compared to the last, I guess, few like 2 weeks. It's insane. And so, where does that exactly put us? Is the question. So, this is going to be the tricky thing, right? I mean, if this actually is the run, then this would break above the trend and push forward. And 467 is the adjusted top. So anything above 467 would solidify as all-time highs. And, where it exactly goes, I think could be aligned with drawing a trend from these two highs. You know? I mean, it really does make a lot of sense in my mind. And so even if it hits this trend line, it's very easy to replicate this. Even if it hits this trend line, it's not checking off the fractal sequence unless it makes an all-time high, right? So let's say, for example, it goes like this, right? I mean, at any point after it breaks above that level, 467, uh, soon as you see a retest of this trend line after that, yeah, it's all puts from there. Now, what we can see here, which is a bit interesting, right? If we break this down logically, and let me just see real quick if I draw. If I try and replicate this diagonal line, oops. So you can see in the past, there's no like good way to really replicate the trend retest, right? Because if I just do it right above, you can see that there's no strong case here unless I move the line a little bit. But this is always a frustrating case. So maybe not exactly like this line. Maybe what we'll have to do is something like this. Um, So in theory, we can get rid of this channel because the channel is it's gonna break above the channel. Actually, I kind of like the channel. So Powell speaks at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And that would allow a break above the trend in the afternoon and then hit this line and come back down after hours and just kind of tread above it. So there's a lot to think about here, and I definitely suggest trying to track this yourself. But if I draw, you can see that once it breaks above the high, so once price goes above this high, which is analogous to 458.32 in the present, it comes back down to test the top of it, right? So in theory, what we could see is a break above it. Maybe it hits the top of the channel. We have to watch for this. Comes back down to test the top, and then the all-time run begins. And you know, could it break above this this line? I don't know. But I'm curious as to whether or not this is a slow grind process, right? And and it's really just hard to play it. You know, it would be hard to play zero DTEs here. But maybe if we can line up PCE with anything? No, not exactly. There was a person that I ended up coming across in the early days of learning fractals, and his biggest problem was finding the tops. He said that bottoms were a lot easier to predict than tops were, and I think from what I've experienced, I think this is true. And you know, it's one of those things that really do get to you. So I think if we just, you know, if we were to draw a line connecting these two tops exactly, it would make so much more sense. But as you can see in the past, it doesn't line up perfectly. You know, because this, unless because there's this middle section that just doesn't get retested at all, and I don't see that. I just see, uh, you know, I only see two higher highs here. And the bottom structure here looks very similar to the last one before the run to all-time high. Unless, of course, you know, we are in this is like the third higher high that we're going to form. And the all-time high run has yet to start. Because there was a, you know, there is a reverse here. And it kind of formed a cup and handle, but it's really hard to gauge this perfectly. Maybe something like this. I think I think for sure what's going to happen is a retest of this top trend. Depending on where on when that exactly happens, whether it's after FOMC or before, should signal some alarms, because I'm pretty sure the speech will cause something. Now I know I was wrong about GDP and PCE causing big moves, but I'm pretty sure that the market's just at the hand of Fed, or at the hand of Powell at this point. To be honest, he seems to be like the scapegoat of the market movement. So, if it just like slow grinds up into it, maybe it could hit 461. It's just so many things to think about here. And this is why I'm showing it, because yeah, maybe someone else can track this better and scale it differently. Hmm. And you can see why I think that the PCE uh, leg up represents this moment here, right? Because it goes low. It goes lower than these high structures, right? So this could be the move up, or it could just be a repeat of what happened 2 days ago, where it hit the top of the trend and then just rejected down. And so I think definitely what you want to watch for is a retest of this upper channel limit, and then just go from there. But it's like, these are one of the tough things in trading, where it hits the line, and what are the odds that it continues to go up, and the amount of profit that you could make. And that's one of the things that I think I struggle with the most when doing fractals, is like, the move indicates that that there's a possibility of it going higher, but at the same time, like what we've seen, today, and with this 458.32 rejection, I mean we're looking at just like minutes, right? We're looking at the 1 minute time frame on the left side here, and and then over here, we're looking at days, and I'm zoomed out on the 15-minute, right? So the scaling is just so different, and the fact that we have this continuation channel, it muddles the water, I think, if that's the phrase. So I'm still set on an all-time high taking place. It's whether it's just trying to it's just trying to get it right, or trade it perfectly. And I guess, I guess it's not possible to trade it perfectly right. I mean, in essence, what you could just do is just wait for all-time high and then just go net bearish. And, what you would see for that first leg down, at least from what we can see on the top structure, is it ultimately comes down below the low of today, right? So, it would go to all-time highs, and it would come down like this. But you see, like, the yellow line is FOMC, right? The decision on rates. So does it hit all-time high on the Fed? Because if it hits all-time high during the Fed FOMC, I mean, that allows a top of 476, maybe a little bit lower if we change the angling of this line. Where'd the line go? If we change the angle like this, it becomes 471, right? And if if you change it in a multitude of ways, 474. Now, this is interesting because I don't have proof of it to show today, but in the comments section on the Webull stock chat, right? There was a candle wick. I swear to God, there is a candle wick that went from, well, like 453-ish all the way up to 474. I don't remember exactly what the point was, but that could be telling. I feel like if I was the market, I would just I would slow grind this, man. I mean, I'd make this really difficult. Maybe trade above it, and then heading into FOMC, like IV starts to ramp, and then maybe it comes down. It's tough, right? So this is where expiration dates become the strategy here, you know. But that's what I'm looking at for SPY, right? And if you've seen my other videos where I was horribly wrong on AMC, I feel like AMC is due for a pop. And I thought that it would happen before FOMC. And I was thinking about, AMC in its origin story as becoming part of this GameStop theory. And I think that AMC became a volatility hedge for GameStop, because look at actually the IV is pretty ramped up on AMC. Wow. That's just interesting. Look at the volatility on GameStop options right now, heading into earnings. I mean, some of these are 500, 400%. And then the week of earnings right now, it's just a steady 200% average. And, you keep going out. The farther you go out, it drops a little bit, which is kind of nice, because you could think about buying January options for earnings. I think, what I'm going to look to do is, in the moment is when I'll really decide, but I want to play options so bad because I just want to see calls win. I want to get profit from on the call side for GameStop just once. I just want to see it happen. And if I suffer, then I suffer, right? But with the goal being 28, right? Maybe a little bit less, maybe 25. I mean, the week of earnings, it doesn't even, 25 is the max, right? So, and because FOMC is the week following, it probably wouldn't be best to buy December 8 calls, but December 15th does look pretty good, and they go to 30. And 25 for December 15th looks really strong. I mean, look at this. Look at this profit. This is just crazy. Imagine buying it at $5. 2,000% profit. Incredible. But I'm really happy to see my initial theory play out, and that was fill the 16 gap before earnings, bar none, and have 18 become the gap to fill once the market corrects, right? Because what you can have here is you can have this gap filled tomorrow. The sooner, hopefully this gap gets filled before earnings. You know, that way, like let's say this gap fills, right? Well, if you gap up here, right? So like let's say the day closes at the bottom of this gap. You can have a gap up all the way to 17, right? Just like this. So you can have a 30% gap up after filling this daily gap. Hear me out, right? And actually, wouldn't that not, no, that wouldn't satisfy it. No. Okay, so this is tricky. I'm thinking the gap definitely gets filled before earnings. Because after the fractal plays out and it comes up to 27, whatever gaps are open after it comes up to this point, right? It's going to fill it after the correction takes place. So it'll just slow grind everything down, and the excuse will be that the market's correcting. So GameStop's just following, you know, the market. And after it fills the gaps, hopefully it gaps up above 18, right? So like after it fills the daily gap, it comes up like this, right to this point, goes sideways into earnings, and then maybe it just gaps above this point, right? It comes up to 28, and then that way you have that gap there, and then you can just, you know, slow grind it until the next FOMC meeting next year, and it would replay the sequence. And this is where you buy shares, in my opinion, right? After earnings, it comes down and it fills the 18 gap or whatever the gap is. That's where you buy shares, because after this point, that's the bottom, right? If we go back, so it's playing out this run up right here, right? And yeah, there's a red candle during this sequence, right? So there is some bearish movement during this run up. And after that run up, it comes down. It takes a long time, but it eventually comes down pretty low, right? Like halfway up the structure. And then that's the bottom, right? And you can see that we haven't even, you know, the stock hasn't cared about these gaps here. And that those gaps might be left there for a very far point in the future, right? But I don't think it's gonna come down as fast as we think it is, right? Right? It might do exactly what it did in the past and just be really slow. It might take a whole year, guys. Like, you know, like think about how small these daily candles are. We zoom out, we see how long it took in the past, we see how long that this whole sequence has been taking. This could take a while. And so ultimately, I'm watching this 18 level. If we gap above it and we don't get a genuine fill of this on the daily, you know, that's the target. That's the last chance to get in and ride this wave up, you know? So it's such an exciting time in my opinion. And because GameStop is in this point, and I think that AMC and GameStop are linked, right? And for those who, you know, I just like reiterating this stuff or showing this. And, you know, a part of me really does agree that GameStop has been the play the whole time. Like, truly. I want GameStop on the left, actually. So, like, let's just track this run up, right? So, like, you could see where GameStop bottomed at, right? before the run up, and how there was a squeeze on AMC, not to the same degree, but relatively the same time period, right? And they've both just been falling together. Look at the cursor on this March run, right? They both ran in March. What happened? Look at this. When did they both look at them? Look, they did their splits around the same time. The reverse split caused a jump on GameStop. Why? You know, during this period here, this hill, similar movement on AMC, right? So what we're seeing unfold is honestly just an incredible thing. And being able to play it is a tricky thing because AMC fell down pretty dang hard today. And I believe that it's still following its pre-Jan, but it's it's mutated in a very odd way. And the question really becomes, well, is this area right here this? You know? I don't think so because the market correction from FOMC. But it's just odd to me that it didn't respect the landmarks, right? And that's what threw me for a loop. So if we look at Microsoft, and if you guys know my stance on 1 minute gaps, look at the 1 minute gap here at 380. Look at the 1 minute gap here at 384, right? In my opinion, Microsoft like never leaves these 1 minute gaps. I mean, yeah, we got some here, right? But I think the priority is bullish, and the gaps to the upside have higher priority than the downside right now. So, in my honest opinion, why would the market choose to go down here now and leave these gaps? Like, we're gonna leave these 1 minute gaps for years, for months? I mean, possibly. Everyone in the back of their mind knows that Microsoft is a pretty stable company to invest in, right? Its valuation, in my opinion, is just fundamentally too high. But that doesn't matter, right? We're playing algorithm here. We're not playing fundamentals. So, and if we look at the other assets too, look at Google. Look at this gap right here. How odd is that? So in my opinion, I think Google's going to come up and fill this 136 gap, right? I mean, this just looks like a perfect little pullback, right, before going higher. And just looking at structure alone, looking at the motion. Tesla has this odd 1 hour gap here, but it's not a 1 cent gap, so it could take a little bit longer to fill that. So I believe the bullish priority is represented in here as well. You can see all these stocks have these gaps here, like really like far below, right? And Nvidia is in an odd spot. So, but I'm not gonna deeply analyze these things because it would take really like just a long ass time. Um, Apple just a crazy cup. Like what the heck is this, man? Perfect, just a wonderful reversal. And one of the things that made me want to go calls here today was because of how choppy that this downward movement was. Usually if it's going to go down, it's going to go, it's going to do stuff like this, right? It's not going to go up down up down up down up down like slowly grind down. Otherwise, it's just kind of creating this spring motion, right? Because this just shows uncertainty like, should it really be here? Should it really not? It shouldn't really do, you know what I mean? It's just wild. So today I really learned to see compressive motion, and how to like what to gauge from that, I guess. So technicals alone, is it possible that we come down again and just absolutely destroy bull positions to form like this wicked head and shoulders? I don't. Could be because there's a lot of time left to satisfy the master sequence and to hit all-time highs. Whether we like it or not, this could just take as much time as it did here, to finally melt up. Like it could just go sideways up until like the last few days before FOMC and start going up. Or it could wait till FOMC, until it wants to go to all-time highs. So there's a lot of things to think about here. It's a very complex process, and it's a pain in the ass because we know the direction. We know where it wants to go if you believe in this track, right? But it's the little like movements, the intricacies of it that really make this difficult, right? Because I can't go to the top structure here. I can't zoom in on the 30-minute, or I mean not the 30-minute. I can't zoom in on like the 1 second or the 15-second here. I only have the 1 minute as an option, right? So it's hard to really tell, but we're either this is it, and it's just a slow grind up, or we still have one more higher high to go before the run up. And so what I'm gonna do for the sake of my position is I'm just gonna assume that we're gonna do a retrace. I'm probably gonna be wrong. The market hates me, so I'm going to cut after it retests the top of this channel, no matter what my calls are. And I'm just gonna wait. And if it wants to come up, hit, and then come back down and hit the top, that would just doesn't make any sense. We really just have to see. But I don't want to miss out on GameStop. So that's what I'm really thinking about here. And GameStop has to, in my opinion, it really does, from how I see it, from my analysis, from my strategy, from how I see it, it really has to fill this daily gap. And then after that, hey, it could run big time. Remember, all the way back from the beginning, from that master sequence, there is this red day here. Could this wick represent that extension needed to fill the gap that was made? Who knows? But it's odd to me that there were no gaps, no daily gaps here. Now, maybe if we go on a smaller time frame, like the 1 hour, so the bottom was 0.94. Let's see where that ended up. No gap here. There was a gap though at this point, but it went lower than that. So maybe that's like, maybe that's the 18 gap. Who knows, right? But you can see where we're at, and it's just a historical moment all around. I mean, this is just incredible. I'm shocked, it's cool to see. It really is. And I'm glad that it's getting this movement. So that's all that's on my mind right now. I know I wanted to make these videos short, but there's just a lot to look at, and now that I've shown the master sequence on SPY, I think, now I can like look at things in detail for you guys and rationalize things differently. So I think that's really all I can say about it. And wherever it goes, whatever happens, right? So regardless, we know the direction, we know the fractal, we know the bias, we play the trend the best that we can. And I hope that all of you do well. And until next time, peace.